update on the governing board offsites around figuring out where decisions are made. It looks like Kay is going to give an update on budget planning and funding stuff, so that's great. That's an important one. Kay, will that also include what we're asking of the working groups if they need funding? Oh, you might be on mute.
Is Kay here? I don't see her in the list.
Yeah, I haven't seen that Kay has come through yet.
Okay, maybe we'll just make a note then in the agenda. Something came up within the governing board around helping to fund working groups that need like immediate funding for cloud compute and things like that. So we should aim to also discuss that, and I'll just make a little note here in the agenda. Funding. And there's also the the external proposals, which is a longer term thing. So I'll add those, and Kay can address them, or I can address them if she's not here.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I know she mentioned yesterday in the GitHub issue that we have kind of talking about this, about needing the requirements from the working groups. And so I know I've definitely heard quite a few of them over the past few months. So I think we can have a pretty decent discussion about what people are after. And Crobe, I see that you said you posted a question in the placeholder area. Oh, in the notes.
The future meeting agenda items.
Okay. Is this
I have some delivery folks here, so I can't speak exactly at the moment, but it should just be a couple minutes.
Okay, yeah, we should have some time. All right.
It should be quick, I hope.
No worries. All right, well, with that, let's see, we're about 5 minutes in, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing on the agenda today is the final working group review for security tooling, and I believe Ryan Ware is here to talk about that. So Ryan, I know you kind of missed the other one, so I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of how we've been doing this. Essentially, give us an overview of the working group. If you want to highlight your README or anything else, you can share your screen. I can stop sharing. And then we're just going to have a fairly organic Q&A session about what you're doing, where you see things going, collaborations with other working groups, sort of things like that. So with that, I leave it to you.
Sure, let me share my screen.
It's all yours.
Oh, damn you, Zoom. Hold on 1 second. Zoom needs permission to record my screen.
You'll probably have to restart Zoom as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, no, I had this problem recently, so.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Security researchers locking everything down.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
This was a fairly regular occurrence, I think, at the start of the pandemic, as everybody discovered on these new virtual meetings, all the little permission things that every new video service needed.
Yeah, and the less that this inconvenience happens, the more terrified I truly am. We've just gone kind of YOLO with permissions sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's like, just make it work, right?
Yeah.
And I'm back.
Excellent.
Okay, sure. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent. So this is the README for the group, and I really just wanted to go through this because it really highlights all of the various things we're trying to do. So one, I at the very top, I want to make sure everybody knows that they're welcome to come and join, and we have all of the meeting information down lower in the document. But the motivation for why we're trying to do this is not every developer is a security expert. You know, there definitely are developers out there that are security experts, but even seasoned developers and security experts make mistakes in their code. And, you know, we want to make sure that all the developers out there, no matter, you know, what their level of expertise, know what tools they can be using to weed out the various security defects that get into their code. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. And so go down a little bit more here. You know, our mission is to identify, evaluate, improve, develop, and ease deployment of universally accessible developer-focused tooling to help the open source community secure their code. This space allows members to collaborate together on these goals. That at a high level is exactly what we're trying to do. I go further in here to say what some of these words mean to what we're trying to do. So to identify, there's a huge number of tools out there. I'm sure you all know, and we want to make sure developers know what tools are available out there to them. We also want to evaluate those tools. Some are better than others, and we'd like to make sure you know, people know what tools have what tools are able to meet the needs of what we're trying to do. We definitely want to weed out bad tools for folks. Where possible, we want to improve these tools. There are some tools out there that are almost really good, and we want to help figure out how we can improve those tools and work with those communities. Where needed, we want to develop new tools. You know, where bandwidth and interest are the constraints, but there are, while there are hundreds of security tools out there for developers to use, obviously we do not cover everything, since there are new vulnerabilities that are coming up in code all the time. And then finally, I think this is the most critical thing that we're trying to do, is we want to make sure it is easy for developers to go and say, here, I'm developing this new Python application. What are the things that I need to do to integrate into my development to make sure that I am developing my application securely? Does this jive with everybody's understanding of what this working group should be doing?
Yeah, I think that's a good breakdown, explaining out each of those things more specifically.
Excellent. Our vision is to improve the perception of security in open source software. I'm sure a number of you have had interesting discussions with the various open source communities and their lack of appreciation of security. We do have the charter in here. The charter does call out, it's not just the template, we've put in the groups, the working group name, and filled out the appropriate information in there. We do have our meeting minutes and the mailing list, and a link to our Slack, as well as Google Meet and the OSSF calendar, where we're sharing, making sure people know. Instead of just telling people, here, this is when our meeting is, I actually point them at the calendar so they can actually see it. Some of the active projects that we have going on, the CVE benchmarking initiative, we want to make sure people know about the OSS fuzzing project, and pardon me, OSS fuzz and fuzzbench, and DAST web application tools. And then we're starting to look a little bit at CodeQL and how developers can be using CodeQL to improve the security of their code. So that's our README. Does anybody have any questions?
I did. If I don't know if it's a stupid question, sorry, but like OWASP has some tools as well, right? So is this kind of an initiative that overlaps that one? I'm just trying to get a better idea.
So OWASP, you know, they definitely have a large list of tools that people can go look at. I think what we're trying to do is OWASP basically has a list of every tool out there that's possible. There's no vetting of any of the tools, and we want to do some of the vetting to make sure people understand, okay, you want to use tool A or tool B, you don't want to use tool C.
I see. That explains it.
And no diss on what OWASP has done. That they've done some great work.
Quick question regarding the SAP. So how the SAP overlapping here between OWASP and OpenSSF?
Seb,
Yeah, if you scroll down Simon's, the Simon is lead.
yeah.
DAS. So the DAS scanning, is that include OWASP SAP?
So it doesn't at this point, but it likely will. We're focused on the web app definition right now.
What about the security knowledge framework tool? Is that included here, or it's somewhere else?
It's not included here. It's on our radar.
I think it's part of the best practices working group, if I remember right.
Yeah, this is Krob. That is part of the developer best practices working group. And
Excellent.
I look forward to reaping the benefits from Ryan's group here and advertising these great tools as good things for developers to use. Thank you, Ryan and group.
Hey, thank you, Krob. And actually, one of the things that I don't have in here that is part of our vision is, you know, there's really a feedback loop here where we have tools that we are trying to get into developers' hands and make part of their processes. And those tools can improve the quality of their code. And you know, we can make sure that when we make recommendations, we want to work with the badging program to figure out, okay, how do we reflect that these folks are actually utilizing these tools and doing the right things, and get the badging program to show some of the relevance of what we're doing with these teams.
Just a question. There was some assumption I think I heard in the past about there being a service definition potentially leading to a catalog of some kind. Is that part of the working group mission as well?
To be honest, I don't know at this point. I think that those discussions happened before I jumped on board.
I think the Microsoft person was presenting a few weeks ago and asked about when the service definition.
Yeah. So that's part of the web application definition was what he was talking about, and he and Simon and others are working on that. Actually, I need to fix this. They actually have the 1.1.0 definition that was put into GitHub yesterday.
Also, is there going to be recommendation about how to run these tools securely in a containerized environments, especially?
Absolutely. That's a part of I think what's critical of what this group needs to do is we need to be able to show the documentation on here's how you go do this. You don't need to be an expert. We're the experts. Let's show you how to go do this securely.
I have a few questions. So thank you for the great presentation. I've been really excited to learn about what this group is doing, and it seems like you have a really ambitious set of things you're trying to achieve, which is really exciting. In terms of breaking it down, just because I know, time is of essence for so many people, and it's hard to sometimes get people to commit a lot of time to working on these projects. You've spanned a huge range of things here where you're trying to perhaps and correct me if I'm misstating any of this, but you're trying to catalog all the existing tools, maybe benchmark and compare and contrast them, give advice as to using them properly so that people can gain their full benefit, developing new tools, contributing to existing tools. How are you kind of prioritizing your time on those different things? I'm looking at a bit further down where you list the active projects. It looks like a lot of existing tools where contributions are being made to some really promising tools that exist. Are there ongoing work efforts around, like someone asked about the service catalog, but I guess that benchmarking piece or the developer guides or any of these meta like coordination or orientation across different tool sets work? Or is it right now only focused on, and not to say that's a bad thing, I'm just curious, only focused on contributing to specific existing tools?
So you are right. There is a huge amount of work here.
Yeah, it's like solving security. It's
Yeah,
it's very bold. I love it.
I mean, Jennifer hit a nail on the head. I mean, I'm looking at tool chains they're putting together, and there's no coordination between lots of disparate tools, and it's like inputs of one don't fit the outputs of another, and all those things. So I'd like to, how you chain them together and how they cooperate.
Yep. No, definitely, and we're trying to do something that's hopefully a little bit short of trying to boil the entire ocean. At the end of the day, so fortunately there's like was mentioned earlier, OWASP has a list of tools out there. There are certain places where we can go steal a lot of this information from already, and at the end of the day, we have a huge amount of work that we have to get done. Yes, there are people's resources and bandwidth are limited. At the same time, the work that we need to do, I think, is critical to the OSSF charter. At the end of the day, if a developer who is not a security expert doesn't know how to use a tool or where to go find a tool to go help him develop secure code, then we at the beginning of their development process don't have the right hooks into what they need to do. And we need to fix that. We're never going to do this all at once. I think it's going to be kind of piecemeal per language, per environment as we go. And this is going to be a living document helping us to get developers where they need to get to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'll put an unsolicited suggestion out there, and if it's not interesting, throw it away. But when I'm looking at something like this is, a huge undertaking, and it's very admirable. And I love that you're bringing together so many parties to finally talk about these topics.
Yep.
I'm wondering if maybe like a preliminary way of capturing, I guess, the ideas that are coming up and the problems might be somewhat analogously to when OpenSSF was launched and Michael Scovetta sent out a paper that was basically like threat modeling the open source ecosystem and was painting this broad view for like understanding and improving open source security. I wonder if like a similar project could be undertaken for tooling. Like it might make sense to write a white paper amongst the folks in this group around like, what are the big problems here in tooling? What are we trying to solve? Because there's things around benchmarking that have come up. There's things around developer guides and deployment. There's things around like inconsistent input and output to chain tools together, and like a million other things that have come up. I'm wondering, like as a preliminary effort toward doing these bigger projects, even just writing down people's views on this, because I think it's very powerful, those thoughts as well.
I really like that idea, actually, and then we've been thinking of possibly doing something like that. But I'd love to see the example that you were citing from earlier in the OpenSSF history from before when I joined.
Yeah, I think that could be really cool, because like one thing I'm noticing, and like this comes up a lot, I guess, in my life, when you are really interested in really big problems that are almost too massive to know where to start, I find that writing like a research plan or roadmap or set of research questions can intrinsically be very interesting. So I think from the perspective of this group, that could be really cool. A second question that I had, if we can scroll up to the vision. So you had mentioned that there could probably be ways of expanding upon the vision. So you talk about improving the perception of security in open source, which is definitely something that needs to happen for sure. I'm wondering on top of that, like, are there visions in terms of outputs, like things that are realized either by developers or by projects in general around what this tooling achieves or what this tooling group achieves, like through those tools, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we touch on that elsewhere, but you know, I do think having that as part of the vision is probably a very good input, because you know, at the end of the day, one of the things that we want to make sure when developers integrate these tools into their development processes is that we want to make sure that it's, you know, almost transparent to them what the tools are doing. And I think documenting that is part of the vision is actually something we should do. You know, at the end of the day, we don't want developers to be fighting tools and having you know, having huge amounts of effort to get these tools in place and used. We want to make sure that they just integrate the tools and whenever they have a problem and they make a mistake, you know, they look at the output from what the tools are giving them and say, oh, crap, yeah, I didn't mean to put that in. And I'm sure as developers, we've all had that moment where we're like, oh, that is not what I was thinking, but look at my code, crap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
thank you so much.
whenever I've had to fill out things like this where you've got kind of overlapping ideas of here's an objective, here's a scope, here's a vision. I feel like I'm being forced to restate things. I looked at the README template that we have for OpenSSF wide, and you aren't actually obligated to put in a vision if you don't want to, but anything that clarifies what the scope is for people is probably helpful.
Sure.
I think that's pretty well captured in what you have for motivation and objective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that all sounds really good. I think it would be cool to see a bit of a near-term and longer-term timeline as well, like thinking about within the next couple of quarters or next year, whatever, what would be the target states that you'd like to achieve compared to the longer term, mostly because of the whole boiling the ocean thing. But I really appreciate what you said in particular around making these things well integrated and transparent to the developers and all of that. I'm really excited and really agree with that vision.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, my career has been as a developer, and I understand what developers want, at least for the most part. And you know, being able to go focus on the things I'm trying to create as a developer is really what I want to be doing. I don't want to be focused on security, although I am focused on security. But and you know, we want to figure out how to enable them to go do that.
Well said. Thank you so much.
Sure.
One last question, Ryan. Thanks for the presentation. So are we planning to unify all tools under OSSF under this working group, like a scorecard and you know, the package feeds, and there are so many critical you know, projects and things like that. So or that's going to work with other working groups separately. Is there any plans to you know, use this working group as a primary group for all the tools used inside OpenSSF?
So there is not any plan on doing that, as far as I know. I'm open to a discussion around that if we think it's needed, but I think the working groups themselves best understand the tools that they need to help them accomplish their goals. And you know, I don't even know all of the tools that the various working groups may be working on. That said, again, I'm open to discussion around that.
Thanks.
I wanted to ask, like, if I know like this is still a work in progress, right? But if somebody like had a suggestion or, you know, like some tool we could add to the list that could be beneficial, because I've been like researching some open source security tools myself. The way to do that, is that to IMU, Ryan, or like submit a GitHub request? What's the best way?
I would submit a GitHub request, but you know, I will take suggestions in absolutely and utterly any form that they can come in. So I would recommend just creating a GitHub issue, because that's the easiest way for it to be tracked and make sure that it gets dispositioned. But yeah, definitely, you know, I will take things in any way.
Awesome. Thank you.
Because the last thing I would say is, you know, I don't know all of the tools out there. My wife regularly reminds me I'm not omnipotent, so please share and help as much as possible.
Sounds good.
Cool. Thank you, Ryan. That was definitely very helpful. Some quick sort of housekeeping questions we have to ask. So you guys, I know the answers to these things, but just to make it official, you guys do meet regularly, correct?
Yes, every other week.
Yes, and you guys have a working group that is of more than, say, 4 people.
Yes, we regularly have like 10 to a dozen.
Perfect. All right, so I guess now we can claim that you are official. So
yay!
Awesome. Yeah, so going forward, you know, we hope to have more regular updates from working groups going on within the TAC.
Awesome.
Keep everybody in sync. So thank you so much for coming and giving us this presentation. Definitely informative, and definitely sounds like there's a lot of interest and some potential for collaboration with other working groups, which is the whole point of, you know, getting everybody together here. So
Absolutely. And, you know, if anybody has any suggestions or comments, please don't hesitate, because we have a lot to do, and I'm happy to help or get help on how we get to where we're trying to go.
awesome. Thank you so much. Excuse me. So the next thing on our agenda today was, I believe, to be, oh no, okay, so the next one we have is a proposal from the OSIF folks. So we have Derek here to present. This actually came up in another working group, so some of you may already be aware of this, but they've been doing some work, and this has some potential sensitivity. So I will let him explain and describe the proposal and how we can kind of move forward after that. So Derek, do you want to take it away? Do you have a presentation to share, or?
Sure. It is going to be a repeat of the presentation that we did with the Security Critical Projects group.
No worries. Yeah, there's definitely a few people here that attended that, but quite a few that didn't. So I think it'd be good.
We had some short notice to be here today, so we don't have a lot of updates.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, the mail that you sent me went straight to my junk folder, which seems to be a common problem for OpenSSF mail that I get. I don't know if other people have this problem as well, but
am I sharing? I can't see on my screen if it's working or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
If
So
you zoom in a little bit, it might be easier to follow along there.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
How's that?
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So what we are proposing, actually, I should just start with the organization, because I'm not sure that everybody here knows exactly what we do. We are a nonprofit organization that's been operating for about 5.5 years now, with a pilot program to improve open source security. That's the general mission. The way that has manifested over time is mostly through security auditing. We focus specifically on closing classes of bugs rather than just doing a security audit saying, here's a list of problems, go fix them. And I think that is the key distinction for open source, is that actually this, the tooling working group is a wonderful example of how we operate. I'm actually really interested in the work that you guys are doing over there, and I'm probably going to join those discussions myself. So what we do is we interview a project, we talk about their current security practices, we find some immediate areas that they could potentially improve, and then we look at when they're doing their next major release for their software, and we perform a security audit of that release. This is because a lot of features get deprecated or replaced with something else, or new features get implemented, a lot of green code. So that is the best time to perform an audit of a project, because you're not wasting resources auditing things that are going to be deprecated, or features are introduced shortly after your audit with a lot of Greek code. So long story short, we are proposing a 25 project group for us to audit. And that is based on data from our security critical projects working group. We pull our information from as many sources as possible, and then we go to our advisory council, which is made up of security experts, to further whittle down our targeting. The goal being that we are proposing the most critical projects that we can back with data and say, these are what we need to be working on. I can share a few of those today. I don't want to share the full list because we have a lot of people in this room and everybody's going to disagree on what should be on that list. And I don't want to fall into that, arguing over the nitty gritty of what's on here. Where should we go next? Over time, we have built a network of 12 security firms and 25 audit teams. And we use an RFP system for each of these projects that we've already completed. So we will put out an RFP. We will say we want this particular project to be audited. We take proposals. We don't only look at cost, we actually look at the full proposal and who is doing the work and whether they're qualified to be working on this particular project, if they have any published work in this area, so on and so forth. So we try to make sure that the audit is going to be as effective as possible while being cost effective. That way we can stretch our dollars as far as possible and do the most good. And also importantly, all of our work is done in public, which means our research is published on our website. You can go to ostif.org and look at every project that we've completed. They are all on there. We publish the full research paper as well as a 10-minute read synopsis, which just covers, what we did. There were this many problems, they're all fixed now. If there's any potential conflicts where a developer didn't want to fix something because they didn't feel it was a bug, that's disclosed there. So the public knows that, this potential issue exists. And maybe if you use that particular feature in the software, you're taking a risk, things like that. So the focus on transparency, I think, is extremely important. Again, for the project selection process, the Securing Critical Projects group has been fantastic for our targeting. The project that the Linux Foundation has conducted with Lish over at Harvard has given us a lot of good data on what companies are actually using. Google and OpenSSF have the Criticality Score project. We draw data from that. We see where things overlap and consider those the most important projects. And then there's a very recent paper that was just released at Washington University that tries to quantify underproduction. So they determine projects that are likely in wide use that are not getting as much attention as they should. So it's a measurement of risk, and we consider those projects to be highly relevant as well. And then we look at the dependency trees from those high profile projects to see if there's things that occur over and over and over again, because those dependencies then also become important. We have a large advisory council made up of experts. Those experts tell us whether a particular project that we're looking at is important or not, based on the type of exposure that the attack surface of that particular application. So we have a link to the project list here. I can share it with everyone in the TAC. We're just not sharing it publicly. I don't want to put it on YouTube forever, and because this is recorded, I'm not going to show it. But everyone in the TAC can see what our project list is and our reasoning for why things were selected or excluded. We actually included all of the projects that we considered but took out for some reason and why. The critical advantages that we have as an organization are that we are very well equipped to deal with open source specific problems. So if you have a decentralized project that has no leadership, no corporate entity, no bank account, they can't handle money without causing problems, etc. We can handle all of those issues and do all of the security consulting work without making them take a bunch of extra steps in order to make this happen. So we've solved the major issue of how do you direct money to get security results. We've tried to get across that bridge, essentially. And then what to expect from this project. Obviously, security fixes are going to come. Every time we do an audit, there's a few or a lot, depending on the project. But our focus is not just on finding bugs, it is longevity. So if we find bugs, our audit teams are tasked with explaining to the developer how those bugs were found, what mistake was made, how you can improve your tooling to prevent this from reoccurring in the future as your project matures. So on top of security fixes, we're talking about security bugs that don't occur in the future because they've improved their tooling or their testing or, etc. And then again, we publish everything we do. So that creates a track record of accountability for us and making sure that we're doing high quality work. It also allows our firms to get some advertising and toot their own horns. It also gives an opportunity for our backers to get credit for supporting us because we make sure that companies that back us get credit for the research that's being done. We put their logos on the front page of the research. I thank everybody in every single blog post that we do, so on and so forth. The PR and media plan is a work in progress. Google has specifically asked us to add this because Google is on board for this project. Unfortunately, Kim's on vacation, so we can't talk too much about that right now, but she'll be back. And then we can talk about the key benefits. We are an IRS 501c3, so we are, if you donate to us, it is tax deductible. We operate as a neutral security advocate, which means the projects aren't selecting the auditors themselves. Really, that's a case of you don't want somebody selecting their friends to do a low quality review. So we want to maintain the integrity of doing security reviews. We give comprehensive assistance. This means that we are solving edge case problems, like I discussed earlier, financial issues because they don't have a bank account. Or if the project has one developer that doesn't understand how to apply security fixes, we can assist them directly with that by contracting someone to write security fixes for that project. And then obviously make a public statement saying, maybe this project needs help from the community. And then we have some supporting evidence here. This is talking about the budget that we've been operating on, which has been very low for security work. We've completed 16 projects with $780,000 in funding. Spread that out over 5.5 years, and you can see how much money we've been working with. During this time, we've learned a lot of lessons. We've built a large network of cybersecurity firms to do audit work. And we have also built a very large advisory council, which has helped us tremendously with policies and procedures and getting effective work done. And they're a fantastic resource for us. If I get stuck with a proposal because something is too complicated, we can go to somebody who is, a PhD level cryptographer, and they can give us some insight onto which proposals are best, et cetera. Under the pilot program, we've located 26 severe bugs. So that's a CVSS score of high or severe, many of them being severe. And then I want to quickly go through 2 use cases so that we can hopefully get some discussion, and I know we're running long. So we did a review of OpenSSL in 2018. This was 2 years after Heartbleed. So the Core Infrastructure Initiative had been backing some developers to improve their code, do some security work, and I believe there was a security audit in there as well, if I'm not mistaken. So as I mentioned before, we try to time our audits to the most effective window for not reviewing deprecated features and making sure we get at green code that's going to be there for a while. So we specifically went and audited version 1.1.1, which was the version that implemented TLS 1.3, which is a new cryptography standard. And they had also completely rewritten the pseudo-random number generator. So because that is a core component in all cryptography, we wanted that specifically to get some heavy scrutiny. We worked together to secure the funding. It took us about 6 months, but we found it. We conducted audits of the TLS 1.3 code, and we had JP Almason review the pseudo-random number generator. Because of this effort, 15 potential security problems were fixed. Now, this was alpha software, so we can't call them CVEs or anything like that, but these problems were corrected as a result. I see Dan has his hand raised.
Yeah, hey, I was just curious. OpenSSL is kind of like the poster child for most things that we do. Usually when I hear somebody explain why OpenSSF exists, it kind of goes back to that Heartbleed history.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of interested to hear from you or from others what the synergy is here between OpenSSF and OSTIF, or do you call it OSTIF?
OSTIF, yeah.
OSTIF, that's easier. With this particular situation that you were just talking about, it sounds like that was happening without support of OpenSSF, but also maybe going forward, what is in conjunction between the 2 organizations?
Sure. What I would ideally like to do if we were fully backed would be circle back and do a security audit of critical libraries like OpenSSL every time they do a major release that implements a lot of new features or makes some sweeping changes to their code. So I think that will give us the surety that we would want from projects that are at that level where they are just so widely deployed that we need to be looking at them all the time. That can get expensive. So we would have to be responsible with, again, timing things appropriately and not just saying, every 3 months we're going to do some kind of security audit. That seems wasteful resource-wise. But if they do a major release, then that's an appropriate time to look at things.
And I don't know if you or maybe David Wheeler or somebody else might know, like, is there anything that OpenSSF is funding directly right now with OpenSSL?
The OpenSSF isn't funding anything right now.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That one's easy. There's no funding. Done.
Yeah.
So the CII stuff, I guess, you'd sort of done a callback there to when the CII initiative had funded stuff, and I
Yes.
wasn't clear if some of that had carried forward into this new incarnation with OpenSSF, but it sounds like no.
The CII hasn't been funded for years.
Mhm.
So
Right.
no. Now the CII did fund OpenSSL. A huge number of really important improvements were made that I think most observers would say were long overdue, like 10 plus years overdue. But
Yes.
be that as it may, the CII did fund OpenSSL. A lot of really important improvements were made. And of course, once those improvements were made, they have continued within the mass reformat, the mass restructuring to eliminate a lot of systemic problems. Those fixes continue to exist within the current version of OpenSSL, but there's no specific funding from, the no longer existing CII or currently from OpenSSF. Funding from OpenSSF would be a decision of the OpenSSF.
Mhm. And also, I should add that the CII work dramatically improved code quality, which our auditors found was very, very notable. So you can actually tell what's going on under the hood without, having to trace every little thing that's going on inside the application.
Yeah, if offline, not in this meeting, if you want, you can talk to me later about the joys of following the old OpenSSL code. It was a nightmare.
Maybe I'll save that
I did it.
I'll save that for Halloween when I want a ghost story.
Oh, touche.
So then not to belabor this, but just across our different working groups, is there anything that's active with OpenSSL within OpenSSF?
I don't think so now.
Okay.
That's just based on our relationship with OpenSSL. I don't think that they're active in any projects right now.
Yeah. Now, separately from OpenSSF, there are a few projects, some of which are kind of remnants of the CII. There is a little work with, it's not really with OpenSSH anymore, but it's with the OpenBSD folks, particularly on RPKI. And there's a few other little projects here and there. Google's separately funding some work, the Linux kernel hardening. But I don't know of any interactions with OpenSSL. So, I mean, the Linux Foundation is big, and there's a lot of large companies represented in this call. So, wouldn't shock me if somebody's doing something, but at least not under the OpenSSF label.
Okay, great. Thanks for allowing the digression there, Derek.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm not aware of anything either on OpenSSL. I will just say we are funding some work with Let's Encrypt and the ISRG on Rust TLS. Russells, I never know how to pronounce that.
Russells.
Yeah.
So,
Tangentially related.
So on the Let's Encrypt tangent, we were actually talking to Josh over at Let's Encrypt about their security. We were just having a conversation, and he said that there was a dependency that he was concerned with, and that was Unbound DNS. So we went and found some funding. We did an audit of Unbound DNS. I'm going to make this quick because we only have 10 minutes, and I would really like to get into discussion. We did an audit of Unbound. There were 48 changes made, including a critical RCE as a result of our work. Can I zoom more quickly through this? Yes. Okay. OSIF is trying to raise $2.3 million to operate for an entire fiscal year. That is to complete what we estimate to be 25 projects. And that is the projects that appear on this list. So I'm hoping this is going to let me change tabs. Let's see if it freaks out. I'm going to have to stop sharing and reshare. One moment, please. So these are the 3 projects that I think everybody should be able to agree on. These are 3 of the 25 that we want to look at.
Excellent. I'm excited already.
Yeah, Electron, Git, and Systemd it's very obvious to everyone that these are extremely important, and increased scrutiny would definitely help. So I'd really like to get into discussion now. I could loop back and talk a lot more about the details, but I can talk about those things in private if anyone's interested. So yeah, I'm super interested in hearing everybody's thoughts on this.
So I think this is definitely great. I think the big question that I have is, what would you like from the TAC? You know, what's next steps? What would you like to have from us?
Well, because there's currently no funding system in place for OpenSSF, we are going to the companies individually to seek funding. So if this is, you know, an idea that you guys support, I would love for things to just be kicked upstairs so that we can have the appropriate conversations with trying to get this funded and getting the work started. We are ready to deploy immediately. So, I mean, we have 25-ish security teams at our disposal. We can get a lot of work done in parallel very quickly. It's literally a matter of funding. If we get funded, work begins tomorrow.
On the funding piece,
Mhm.
I see Kay isn't here, so I'll give like an unofficial update, but I defer to Kay if she
Okay.
corrects anything that I have because I didn't prepare it. But
Yeah, Kate
within
messaged me that she's lost her internet today, so she won't be.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Okay, well, Ryan, if I mess up any of the details, please do correct me.
Mhm.
In the OpenSSF governing board, we were talking about this quite recently. I've been leading some basically governance type sessions for us to figure out where decisions are made, and the budgeting and finance piece is of course a huge part of that. We still have, I think, one more iteration to get through to figure out how all that workflow is going to look. But ultimately, we've been talking within the governing board around short-term funding, internal working groups, and medium term, like within the next couple of quarters, launching a program for external applications where we can route funding through that mechanism. So I would anticipate, like nothing is set in stone currently, but I imagine it will be pretty soon. But I would anticipate that sometime in the summer, we would be able to open up to funding external projects, and we'll create some kind of proposal mechanism for that. So just to kind of have that on your horizon, it's probably within the next like handful of months, and that will become like a publicly open, I'm imagining it's an RFP process. And we could probably work with you guys in that regard as well.
I'll just say though, I think the dollar numbers that we're talking this summer in the OSSF are much smaller than what Derek's looking at.
If I could also bring up a point as well. One quick thing that I just wanted to mention too about our research teams and kind of how we work in general is we're very much an international organization as well. A lot of our teams are not based in the US and are either based in Europe or in Asia Pacific. And because of that, I feel like we get a very diverse pool of talent that we're working with. And because of that, we kind of have that cross-border trust and rapport set up with these organizations. And then regarding the funding piece, yeah, absolutely. It is going to take a good amount of funding to get this going. But I'm really excited that Google has already expressed some interest and wants to support this. And this would very much all be under the OpenSSF as well. Given that OpenSSF is the organization that is showing or demonstrating that kind of cross-industry collaboration and really getting things done for the good of everybody involved. And we're offering a solution, I think, that would very much accomplish that. And figuring out how to get it funded is, I would say, our top priority. And again, I definitely understand that there needs to be a very formal and fact-based process for doing this. But at the same time, I just want to bring up the point that time is of the essence as well. And we very much we have the boots on the ground, so to speak, on the front lines, ready to do this work. And it's just a question of getting the resources in place.
Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. We're not chasing glory or notoriety here, so anybody who backs us is going to get credit for it. We're participating in the OpenSSF because this helps us perform our function, which is making things better. So giving the OpenSSF credit and giving all of our backers credit is a large priority for us because that facilitates us doing more work. So
Do you, so I know that the total dollar number you were looking for was like 2.3 million, I think you said, for the entire year. Do you have plans to start with a smaller amount if you can't raise the whole thing, or is it kind of all or nothing at this point?
so the 2.3 million is for us to run full tilt maximum capacity. I'm probably working overtime in those that proposal. So we can work with a smaller amount. We would have to shorten the list and prioritize things, but yeah, we could work with a smaller amount. That's not an issue.
Yeah, and we can very much make it incremental as well. So if we get enough funding to start and start showing results, it's certainly not like a Kickstarter all or nothing kind of a thing, where we can certainly get started with what resources can be provided, and then iterate from there, build from there.
Yeah, exactly. We have a track record now with the projects that we've completed, but if companies are more comfortable contributing to us on a regular basis, you know, for ongoing support, that would also, we're open to anything. But yeah, I feel like even with just Google's support, we'll be able to get started at least and show, you know, some results.
And it's one of those things too, I'm just looking at timelines, results would come. It's not going to be one of those things where we'll keep saying, you know, in 2 weeks, like results will come imminently after the work starts. It's not one of those things where it takes years, and you know, the results are very real, they're very measurable, and it's nice that we can use it also as PR and marketing for the space for everybody to benefit from as well.
Yeah, I should also mention that we tend to work very quickly. So, I mean, if we do 25 projects at once, it's probably going to slow down a bit. But our turnaround from getting funded to having a final report is approximately 6 weeks. So we can work very, very quickly once we have backing.
Cool. So it sounds like there's definitely interest here. You know, in the other meeting, I heard a lot of interest for this, and in this meeting as well. It sounds like kind of our next steps here to try to prioritize and figure out our budgeting requirements, hopefully sooner rather than later. I know this is not the only one that is asking for funds. You know, there's other working groups that kind of have some immediate need as well. So we definitely need to prioritize that. So I'll bring it up with Kay. We do have a planning meeting every Monday, typically, where we talk about some things like this. So maybe we can start accelerating that. And then since we ran out of time today, some of these discussions, and Kay wasn't here, we'll put back on the TAC meeting for next time as well. So we'll work to try to get this accelerated a little bit, and maybe get some answers. But thank you so much for taking the time to present today. I know it's short notice. And
yeah, absolutely. And if anyone has any questions for me, it's just my name here at ostf.org. Just drop me an email. I will happily discuss any component of this. Excellent.
Thank you so much. And apologies for not getting to everything on the agenda item today, folks. We'll move those to the next meeting, and we'll continue on. So hope everyone has a great week, and we'll see you guys later.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Derek, thanks everyone.